Alright guys, this beast needs a tailgate. And I don't like the stock tailgates because I think they're ugly and they're big and bulky and heavy and I don't like them. So I'm not going to use the stock tailgate. That and it would cost me money to go buy one and I don't want to spend money. So what I've got is I've got this metal here, which is a piece of the gate off my trailer. When I originally made my trailer, I made the gate really tall, had a big ramp. I never used anything to ramp up in the trailer, so I cut the gate off level with the top rails so it wouldn't have all that wind resistance. So this expanded steel was welded to this at one point. Not anymore, obviously, because I cut it off at one point. But I'm going to use this. I'm going to repurpose this metal, this frame, or parts of this frame. I have another piece of clean steel because these pieces are smaller. So I'm going to cut these out. I'm going to use this piece and these two side pieces and clean them up. Use a piece of the clean steel over there that I have. And I'm going to put this expanded steel on it. So we'll have a nice tailgate back here with expanded steel. So it won't be a big sail for the wind to decrease my gas mileage, because we don't want that. Anyways, that's the plan. So let's go make it. Alright, so the first thing we need to do, get that framework cut into pieces. Separate out the thinner pieces that we're not going to use, get those put back in the shed. Get the bigger pieces that we're going to use and get them cleaned up. So I reorganized the garage a little bit. This spot over here where the El Camino used to sit has more light, so it's better for videos. And now that it runs, it's easy to move. So I push it over there to the other side of the garage, get some light on this project. We've got our angles cut, all our 45s. It's fairly clean. Some spots are cleaner than others. I think it's going to work. The dimensions, about a foot tall. What was that other dimension? 55.5 inches wide by a foot tall. And that's fitting pretty snug in there. A little bit of a gap on each side so it doesn't hit the bed sides too much. Got it cleaned up, used a couple different methods, see which method worked. Sandpaper on a grinder. Worked all right for some of it. And I went to a wire wheel, which worked a little bit better on some of the deeper rust. I tried to finish it up with a Norton. This is a Norton paint buster, I think is what they use it for, is stripping paint off cars. They're pretty good. Norton makes about the best one that I've run into. A couple different companies make them, 3M, whatever. Norton has the orange ones, and they last the longest. And they do a really good job of cleaning stuff up. Some of this rust is pretty thick though, so we're going to have to spray this down with a good rust preventative paint when we get all done with it. So let's get this thing tack welded up, see if it fits in the opening, and see if we need to make any changes. So I use a square on the inside edge to tack weld it, and that gets it pretty close to being a square or rectangle. If you take your tape measure after you've tacked everything together and you go diagonally from one corner to the other, 56 and 5/8. 56 5/8. Wow, that doesn't usually happen that way. Usually it's a little bit out of square, and what you can do is you can take a strap. If diagonally this way is shorter, you can take a strap and go diagonally this way and tighten the strap up and just flex it a little bit, and it'll bring it into square. And you just keep diagonally measuring it and using a strap to compress it whichever way it needs to go, and it'll bring it around so that when you weld it, it's actually a square and it's not slightly out. So this one's pretty close. We'll flip it over, tack the other side, double check the square with a tape measure, and then solid weld it up. Alright, so got that welded up, got the welds ground down, nice smooth finish there. Got our piece of expanded steel out of our scrap pile, and I trimmed it up so it fits right on there. Now this is kind of rusty. It's been cleaned up a little bit, but I want to try and clean as much of that rust off there as I can. So the easiest way I've found to do that is with a grinder and a wire wheel. This little cone-shaped wire wheel seems to work really good. Now this is a braided one, has the steel wires are twisted together. I don't think that this one works as well as the one that's just wires hanging out, but I don't have one. This is the only one I have. So I'm going to wear this one out, and the next one I buy will just have the strands coming out. So let's take this to this piece of expanded steel and see how clean we can get it. So that's cleaned up pretty good. Got all that surface rust off there. I might go over it one more time before I weld it on. What we got to figure out first, before we weld this on to that frame, is how that frame is going to attach to the car. We've got to make hinges and latches. And I've got an idea on the latch, but the hinges, all I have so far is the bar and the sleeves that are going to make up the hinge. So I got to find a mounting bracket of some sort. Alright, so I've got this kind of mocked up over here, getting held in place by this little scissor jack. And I've got this bar, solid bar, pieces of pipe, and slide over it pretty well. Just enough space for a copper or brass bushing in there if I can get another piece of sleeve. One of these is going to weld to the tailgate, and one of these is going to attach to the car on each side. And then I'll cut a length of this to fit into the two, put cotter pins on both sides, and that's how it'll pivot. But I've got to figure out a bracket system. I can weld this one to the tailgate, but the bracket system for the other one to weld to the car or bolt to the car, I've got to make something that's going to go in here to attach it. Let me get some steel. I think I might have an idea. So I've got a couple of these pieces of diamond plate that are cut about the same width, and one's a little bit longer than the other. But if I use this, maybe bend it, weld one end down here, have it come up, attach to this, bend it at a 90 so it goes in and welds in here. I'll have like a little L bracket that'll support that tailgate. And none of this metal back here is super thick. It's all kind of thin metal. But the tailgate doesn't weigh a lot, and if I position the hinges more in the middle, not on the outside edge, then it's not going to have a lot of pressure. It'll distribute the pressure a little bit better in here than if I put the hinges out here. So let me go bend this piece of metal, see what it looks like. So I got it bent over the vise, and I trimmed the ends up right where I need them. Fits right in there. This will fit right on top. So I can weld the bottom, weld the top up there, and weld this piece to this mount. And the other sleeve will weld to the tailgate itself. With a sleeve, a copper sleeve in between this and the rod, should pivot just nice. Alright, so I got these welded on, and I've got my hinges made. Got the center pin, one that welds to the bracket, and one that welds to the tailgate itself, and then the pin connects them. I've also got a little sleeve in there to make it fit a little better. So what I'm going to do is hold this up here as straight as I can get it. I'm going to try and position it right in the middle of the bottom of this. When I get it to where I think it's straight, I'll tack weld it. I'll tack weld this. I'll go to the other side, do the same thing. When you take it off, it's solid welded. And I have welded some of these with that copper insert in there, and it didn't do anything to it, so I'm thinking it'll be alright. I don't think copper melts at too low a temperature. So, get that done and be right back. Alright, so we have this one tack welded to the gate, and this one's tack welded to this bracket. Little pin. It's a little sticky over here. It still slides through. Works pretty good. So we'll take these pins out now. We'll take the gate over to the stand and we'll weld this on both sides. We'll finish welding this on both sides. Then we'll get it a little bit of seam seal on here and a little bit of paint inside and out. Move on to welding our screen and making our handles up for the corners. Alright, so I've got this welded in. This piece is solid welded to this bracket here, and this piece is welded to the frame. Sits in there nice and easy. There's no friction. It's not going to bind up at all. It opens, closes, real nice, real smooth. Now up here in the corner, I needed to figure out a latch for each corner. So I took lug nuts that were the same size, or almost the same size, as this metal rod. I had to drill them out just a little bit so this slides through. And that's the outside handle. And it'll have another piece on the other side here welded to it that will pivot down, and then it'll pivot back up and go around this edge to hold it up. Another thing I've done is I drilled a hole up here in the corner and I put this little rubber stopper so that it's not resting metal to metal. It doesn't make a horrible noise when you shut the tailgate. So I'm going to finish up these latches so that they turn. That'll be open, and as you turn it down, the little arm will catch on the inside of the bed there to keep it from opening. And gravity should keep this down. Let me get some of that done. I'll come right back. So we've got these little handles made. Pick them up. Tailgate opens. you can see on the inside here, it's got this little arm. So when the pivot's down, that little arm goes in and rests on the inside of this pinch weld right here. Just an old school, plain and simple latch. Nothing's gonna go wrong with it. Plenty of adjustment can be made with a BFH. Little rubber grommet keeps it from vibrating. I think we're good to go. Put a little bit of black paint on this tailgate. Put a little oil in that groove there so this doesn't squeak. Put it all back together. Alright, we got some black paint on it. Looks pretty good. Greased up all our fittings, our hinges, our latches. Got a little chain on each side. Keep it so it sits level. Supports it real good. I use some shoulder bolts over here to go through the chain so these ends will pivot. Got it worked out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this little tailgate. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button. This project's almost done, but there'll be another one. There'll be plenty more projects coming. Hit that subscribe button to see the next project coming out. Don't forget to wear all your safety equipment and go make something.